Hello guys, welcome to my channel. This is the 17th tutorial in this course. In this tutorial, we're going to talk about null values and the empty method in PHP. So I've got a file opened up in my text editor Notepad++, and the name of this file is null.php. And in this file on line number 6, I have the opening PHP tag for the code, and on line number 11, I have the closing PHP tag. And I have created a variable called var on line number 7, and I've given to it the value null. Now, a lot of people would tell you that null means 0 or null means space, but that's not true. Null values actually mean nothing, right? So in case you have a value that is nothing, you can call it null value. And this can be tricky to understand, but I'm going to give you an example which I hope is going to simplify things. So let's say you have designed a sign up page for a website, and on that page there are a lot of fields. You've asked users to provide their first name, their last name, their age, and maybe their contact details like their email addresses and so on. Now on that page, when a user is registering, you wouldn't want the user to not type in the first name or not type in the last name, and these fields are also called required fields, right? So that's why if you would try to sign up on Gmail and not provide your first name, if you try to register, you'll get an error message. You would see like red text all over the page, and you would see that you cannot register without supplying your first name, right? So those kind of checks are made using certain functions, and we're going to talk about the empty function. But null value in PHP is useful, and again we're going to talk about this later on the course when we do some interesting stuff with the null data type. But if you want to create a variable and if you want to explicitly assign null value, then you could simply type in the text null, and that's null. So the way we created boolean variables by typing true and false as boolean values, and assign those values to variables, you can also assign null value to a variable by simply typing null, right? And if you would echo out the value of a null variable, then since null values are nothing, you're going to see nothing, right? And we're going to check out the output of this file in a minute. But there is a function that you can use to confirm whether the value in a variable is null or not, and the name of that function is null, and that's is_null. And the way you check is by passing in the name of the variable within parentheses as an argument to the function, right? And then there is another method that we're going to talk about, and this one's called empty. And this method is extremely useful when you are taking data from users and you want to be sure that they have supplied something and something valid, right? So for instance, if again you have a sign up page and the user supplies 0 as a value for the first name or 0 as a value for the age, now that can't be true, right? Nobody can be called the number 0, or the age of a person cannot be 0, for instance. So the empty method checks whether the value in a variable is null or if it is 0, and if the answer to that question is true, then you see 1, and if the answer to that question is false, then you see nothing, right? So it works the same way as the is_null function or the is numeric, is int, is float, the is family basically. So now let me show you guys the output of this file. I'll go to my browser, and instead of booleans, I'm now going to request for null.php. When I press the enter key, I see that I don't get anything in the first line of the output, and that's because I had an echo statement that I used to display the value that's there in the variable var, and since var has null value, I don't see anything. The reason why I see the next line, the output of the next statement on a fresh line in the output, is because I have also echoed out a break tag here, right? And what's going to be the output of this function is_null? Of course, the value in the variable var is null, so that's why we're going to see 1 as the output of this function. And since the empty function checks whether the value is null or 0, since the value is null, it's also going to return 1. So we're going to see 1 here. Now if suppose I change the value of this variable to 0, what all changes should we expect in the output? Well, first of all, we're going to see the value 0 on the first line, so it's not going to be that we're not going to see anything in the first line on the output. And this function is also not going to return 1 to us. It's going to return 0 to us, or nothing, this time, and that's because the value is no longer null. 0 doesn't mean null. It means that there is something, but it's 0. But the empty function is still going to return 1 to us because, as I said, it checks whether the value is null or 0. So let me go to my browser and refresh, and there we go. We now see 0 here and nothing here, and we see 1 here, right? So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys had fun watching, and you may subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'm going to see you in the next video, in which we'll talk about some more interesting stuff, and that's it. Take care.